digital nomad, you'll know me. And we're here because lately we've all been shocked by the H1B $100,000, whatever you want to call it, policy, proclamation, junk, whatever. So now people are worried naturally about the H1B situation. What are they going to do if they cannot come in on H1B? So I traveled all the way out here to Liz's office because she specializes in O1, which is sort of a replacement. It can be a replacement for H1B because O1 doesn't have the 85,000 limitation quota, whatever you want to call it, every year. So anyone can apply anytime if they're eligible. So it's like a work visa, just like the H1B, but you don't need to do the lottery. But it is higher, in terms of the requirements to meet the O1 threshold. So we're here to ask Liz all about that. So first, I kind of wanted to tell you guys that Liz and I, we go way back to like law school times. I still remember that I saw you at like bar prep, or we interned at Mary Mucha, the public interest firm at immigration for a while, and then I saw you. I remember seeing you at the bar exam with your now husband. That's coming to me this morning when I was thinking how we met. Yeah. So Liz, tell us about what the O1 world is like, because I'm not big on that.
Sure. Thank you for venturing all the way to the center of Los Angeles, Jack, to meet me today. So by way of introduction quickly, I'm Liz Profumo. I'm the managing attorney at Global Talent Immigration Law Group. Many of our clients are applying for visas based on extraordinary ability, so it's a good topic. It's timely because of, like Jack mentioned, all the situation, the announcements with the H1B. Right. I'm talking to a lot of people who were planning on doing H1Bs, and now they feel that they have no option for moving forward. So I'm talking to people about building their O-1 profile as an alternative to the H1B. So in O-1 world, as you describe it, what immigration looks for is proof that the worker has a history of success and achievements in their field. So generally, the H1B requires you to show that you have a bachelor's degree or its equivalent, and you have an offer to work in your field of expertise. So the O1, it does still require you to show you have work lined up, but the requirement on the employers isn't as stringent. The beneficiaries, however, the foreign workers, are required to show that they have some record of success in the field, oftentimes. So if you have a company sponsoring you for H1B, it's because they already think you're valuable, which is one of the O1 criteria. So the way the O1 works, the government lays out 8 different criteria, and they say you have to meet at least 3 out of 8 as a minimum to qualify. One of them is whether or not you have a critical role for distinguished organizations or a department. So if your company's sponsoring you for H1B, chances are you already meet that one. So the question then becomes, how do you meet at least 2 more? So the hallmark of the O1, it's showing, first of all, that you do good work, you're important to your company, but also that your name is out there in your field beyond your company. So immigration, I think their favorite way to see this is through publications. So this could be someone interviewing the foreign worker, talking about your work, which I do understand a lot of times there's NDAs and things like that. So it can just be about your general expertise in your field. Or alternatively, if you write papers and publish them, that's another criteria that qualifies for the O1.
Okay, can I pause you? So a lot of times I get calls and they're like, I can't write a paper. I haven't written a paper in like 10 years. Yeah. So for those people who can't really spend say 100 hours producing, an article and send it to whatever, Nature's magazine or, whatever trade magazine that's in their field, how would you help them build an O1 eligible profile?
So first of all, I do think that from doing this work for a long time and talking to a lot of people, having the right kind of attitude about it is also important. So when I do talk to someone and they tell me they can't do something, then right away I go to the place of, I'm not sure if this person is, has the right mindset to qualify for extraordinary ability. But the more substantive answer to your question is, there are actually a lot of professional people out there who have careers in professional development, and their whole career is to coach people on how to raise their public profile, how to make a name for yourself. So if someone feels that they need that assistance, I would encourage them to work with someone like that can help them, because like I said, there are professionals in the field specifically.
And like a PR for scientists, you mean, like for someone to go and be like, oh, you should be doing, go get this conference, that like an agent. And will they get you gigs?
So
or they...
I wouldn't call them an agent. I'm not sure if PR is exactly the right word, but I mean, essentially, yes, they do help you. They can coach people in different fields about things they can do to raise their public profile. Exactly.
Elevate
right.
your public profile.
Exactly right.
Okay,
yes.
So I mean, to me that's PR. But then, like, how do you engage them? How do you even find them online? Like, how do I tell if this firm is able to help me with that or not?
Well, so that's research that people have to do. It is, there are different people that specialize, or different companies that'll specialize in different areas.
Right, areas, yeah. Because we get, mostly I'm hearing like there's a scientific O1, there's the entertainment O1, and then the scientific O1 branches out into like, there's like the engineers, there's like the coders, the business development people, and entrepreneurs, there's like a bunch of non-entertainment ones. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the problem that I have mostly with my O1 consult is like, oh, I'm from academia, but I don't really publish, so do I, and then they're looking for directions to elevate their profile, so, and then they kind of want to do it on their own. So writing an article takes a long time. So what other things you would suggest that they do to work with you to build an O1 eligible profile?
So there are, if writing, researching and writing, it's onerous. If it's too much, then finding opportunities where you can be interviewed as an expert, that takes a lot less time. I mean,
interviewed by whom though? Can I interview them? I mean, as a lawyer, or does it have to be like a media person? A publication.
If there's a publication, something in your field that would find your work interesting, or that you could contribute your expertise and your, ideally if you have something specific that you can focus on, that you are an expert in above, your peers or colleagues.
Does it have to be CNN, or can it be like Stars of Hollywood?
It doesn't have to be CNN. Of course, if it is CNN, we love that. That's great. But there has to be enough information about the publication that we can provide it to immigration. You do want to show that it is a respected publication, a reputable, legitimate.
Does it have to relate to that person? Like, Hollywood star versus like engineer. It doesn't seem like they jive in terms of like their background.
Well, I mean, it would be unusual, I think, for an entertainment publication to interview an engineer. So it would be, I think ideally an engineer would be interviewed in a publication that is geared at, some kind of trade publication geared specifically towards engineers.
And these professionals that you mentioned that can help you boost your profile, they can help you try to link up with these publications that might be interested in hearing what you have to say?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's a good place to start, because I know that media coverage is like a big thing, right?
Absolutely. There are people that will promote you as a subject matter expert, and so they will reach out to their contacts in the trades and the media to see if they need a subject matter expert to discuss certain topics. How
difficult really is it to find someone that could link you up with like a media person? Because I always find that to be very like mysterious behind the scenes. How are we going to get that? Like, we're, I'm not, Meryl Streep, nobody wants to talk to me, that kind of thing.
Well, trust me, I get it. I'm like, I'm on video, so I definitely understand. So look, people do it. I've had many clients that have done it successfully. I can't, I don't know that I can answer the question, how easy or difficult was it? I think it's also very dependent on the person. Everyone's different. So some people might be happy to give interviews. Some people, maybe you're not a public-facing person. You're not.
I'd rather do an interview than write a paper, honestly.
Well, okay, so for the people, and that I probably agree with you, but for people who don't agree with you, another thing so you can write and publish papers. There's a different criteria where if you peer review other people's papers,
right, that's another one.
That's another qualification.
How do you get people to ask you to do peer reviews for them? That's another thing.
That might be something that you have to reach out. And so if you have, most people that I talk to, they are familiar at least with some publication. They have colleagues that have relationships that publish or review, and a lot of people will use their network to be able to do that.
So if someone comes to us and say, because I can't do it, but you seem to be able to, like if someone comes over and says, I have these things for the O1, and you're like, okay, maybe you're like a borderline, not quite enough. And then they say, how can you help me with, getting there? So what is it that we offer? Because I don't offer anything like that.
Well, so I mean, I offer a roadmap. I let people know, look, I think this is where you're strong. I think this is where you have something, maybe it's not that strong, and so we'll identify the areas that you can improve. Usually there are some, I kind of refer to it as the low-hanging fruit. There'll be something kind of easier that you can do to check off another box. Maybe there's a competition coming up, you're an engineer, there's a hackathon that your friend is involved with setting up, and you can be a judge for it. Okay, so that's low-hanging fruit that we can check a box. So usually we'll give you a roadmap to let you know what we're looking for. I can't say that we have resources or professionals on our roster to cover everything, but we'll say, like, look, there are people out there that can help with XYZ. Go consult with some of them and see.
So you're like a mastermind behind all the, go do this, go do that, and then would you try to help them find professionals that could help them link up with media or peer review or...
It's not part of our service to procure things like that. It's beyond the scope of what we offer. However, if there are companies that work with multiple clients successfully, we do have a referral list, and we will add companies once we feel that we can trust them to add to the list.
Okay, so you're kind of like a coach as well, but you provide more directions in terms of this is where you need to go into, and that's what you need to go into, and I think what's really valuable is pointing them in a direction where they can find the right people to help them boost their profile. Because I think that the biggest sort of misconception is people call me and say, I want to do O1, I want you to do everything for me. Find me a publication, find me this, find me that. Find me work to peer review other people's work. I'm just I don't know if that's what lawyers do.
Right. Well, also this is extraordinary ability, so I think the name should indicate that people should be prepared to show that there's something in their background that makes them valuable and stand out. So yes, it's not anyone who's watching this that thinks that you can pay a lawyer and that will qualify you for the O1. I can dispel that myth right now. That's not the way it works. A good O1 lawyer will figure out how you qualify. They'll use your background and your strengths and your qualifications to present the best case to USCIS.
Okay, and I think that for everyone who's watching, they're all of them, a lot of them are at the beginning of building their O1 profile, because I get a lot of calls where they go, I have been in my field for 5 years. Do I qualify for O1? I really hate those kind of calls because I feel like I'm going to have to spend 30 minutes explaining to them about the 8 things that they could qualify.
So then don't call Jack for that. Call me. I love talking to you about that. Okay.
So how do you get them to, how do you segue into the most important thing when someone says, I have a master's degree and 5 years of work experience. I want to apply for the O1. What do you start with that?
Well, so much like we're talking about here, we identify first of all if there is anything that's already in your background that qualifies. Hopefully there is if you have a master's, hopefully you've published something in 5 years of work experience. Hopefully you have something, you have an important role for a company. So we'll start by identifying what you have, but then we'll just look at what else you need to do, because, anyone who comes in thinking that the master's and experience in and of itself qualifies, we just have to start with the education that's not what we need. So.
That's at least an hour of just talking about it. Oh my goodness.
I don't know.
I don't really do hours. I do 5 minutes and 10-15 minutes, but
I think we can, usually, look, people that have master's degrees, you're smart people, so usually 30 minutes is sufficient to be.
Do you have a questionnaire where they try to give you everything so that you could have an overview?
Oh, I have so many questions.
Okay, so you give them the questionnaire so you could gather that information much faster. Yeah, I'm just thinking on the phone, how do I tell someone, well, there's 8 requirements. Which 3 do you think you mean? One of them is, all 8 of them are. Well, it just takes a long time.
It does. When you do it enough, you start to know which fields you expect to see evidence. Engineers, we're going to generally expect you to show that you have an important role for companies. You might be a
Any
member.
companies, like their own companies?
They
Would
have
that
to be
work?
distinguished companies.
How do you tell if a company is distinguished?
So the best way to show companies distinguished in USCIS's eyes is if there's press or media coverage about the company.
Okay.
Or of course if the financials show, a very high revenue.
Making lots of money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd say those are the main two. But
I mean, how much money is making a lot of money? These are all subjective.
it is all subjective.
Okay, so you kind of just like make the best you can based on what we have.
That's right.
Okay, so when the client calls you about the O1 and you give them a questionnaire, how do you turn that? How do you go into the details of each evidence? So do you do that?
Yeah, of course.
When you
So when we're
at what stage?
So when I talk to someone to see if they qualify for an O1, and I ask them, have you ever been a peer reviewer? Yes, I have. Okay, who have you peer reviewed for? Oh, the journal of this? Okay, great. So I'm going to assume, and from my experience, I think you get a sense of what sounds legitimate, what you might need more information to confirm. So, we'll say, okay, so that's going to be one box that we're going to check. Will your employer, we want to argue, you have a critical role for your company. Will your employer, will your supervisor sign a letter confirming like what your duties are, why you stand out, that you're important? Yes, they will. Fantastic. Okay, great. That's the second one. So we'll go through membership in organizations that require everyone to show outstanding achievements. And actually this one can be hard to meet because there's not many organizations that actually are that restricted.
Right, that's another thing.
So,
everybody tells me that I have this membership. I'm like, how do you get in? Oh, I paid $20 to get in.
Right. So a lot of times the organization in and of itself, so some do, most don't. But when you're in an organization, then if you get put on a committee or a panel or something that is only for the most elite members, and someone from leadership in the organization will confirm that. So we'll get into those details.
Declaration.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, you're on this committee within the IEEE. Will someone, in the organization sign a letter confirming that all the other members are top tier members? And yes, they will. Great. You're not sure if they will. You'll find out. Okay, so that'll be a question mark. So we dig in. We have to.
Okay, and is this at the beginning before they sign the contract, or is this after they've engaged you? This is always
for me
I'm not
personally.
Sure. Yeah.
I just tell them what I would do and how I think I can help. So when I'm consulting with someone, I'm always trying to determine if I think I'm the right person to be able to help you. So I'm asking questions to determine if you're going to be able to provide to me what I'm going to need to help you. So we come away from the conversation either with, yes, I can help you, please find out this or that, and then I'll tell you if I can help you. Or, look, it's not the right time to move forward, so keep working and come back to me.
Okay, so for those people who call you and say that they are, at the very beginning, they have one paper from their PhD degree, and then it was cited to by 5 people, you would tell them you give them a roadmap so that they can go out and get the other 2 or 3 requirements, 1, because you already have 1 or 2 based on this person's job offer you said about, and then they're already I didn't think of that, like you're already important in the organization when you're offered an H1B. I never thought of it that way.
Well, most of the it's very rare in my experience that a company will sponsor an H1B for someone who they are not familiar with the work.
I see. That's true. Yeah. But H1B does have a lot of entry level positions, whereas I don't think you would see entry level positions for the O1s.
So yeah, job titles are important for O1s. What O1s consider is if you've had a leading or critical role. So if your job title is assistant, if it is junior, something like that, that's not going to be ideal. So the title's important. For the O1, we don't see them digging into the job duties nearly as much as they do for H1B or some other types of visas. So if the title is strong, the duties aren't as important in O1. So I would say having the title is more important than the details of what the position actually entails.
Okay. And then I've always been confused about this agency O1s, where, because people call and say, I can't find an employer, but I really want to come and work, and I want to, and then they've been told that there's an agent that can represent them, that can be the petitioner for the O1, and then they can later on switch out to other employers when they find them. How does that work?
So, and this is a tricky area. So, okay, an agency-based O1, it is generally a visa that allows O1 visa holders to work for multiple companies without having to file new petitions in general. Okay?
Exactly what they want.
Okay. So now the thing is, in the arts, it's fantastic. Actually,
Right.
agency-based O1s in the arts offer the artists a lot of flexibility. Now, unfortunately, for people who are considering the H1B, the O1 that they're going to apply for is going to be the O1A for business, science, education, athletics. That doesn't offer the same flexibility that they do in the arts. It can, now an agency-based O1 can allow you to work for multiple companies. However, it can only allow you to work for the companies that provide you with job offer letters at the time you file the case. Okay, so if you have an O1 to work as an engineer and then you get another offer from a company 6 months later, unfortunately, you can't just go work for them with your existing O1. That new employer, you'll either the new employer will have to file an O1 for you, or you'll have to amend your O1 to include them. But it is a myth that O1 can be self-employed, or that an agency-based O1 means that you're self-employed. That's not the case. I know there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings around that point.
Another one, I don't know if it's a misconception, is like the agencies will find you the job, or are you supposed to go out and find your own job and then bring it to the agency? How does it usually work?
So agent means that they're representing the worker and multiple employers for the purpose of the O1 visa petition. So it's not necessarily an agent like we're used to hearing, like an employment agent, a talent agent. So there are situations where an agency, as we think of it, will hire a worker and then pay the worker exclusively, and then the worker will go work for their clients. Yes, that does happen. It does exist. I think what's a little more common is for a worker to just have their own deals that they have gotten on their own to work for multiple companies. And in that case, the role of the agent, it's really just to be the point of contact with USCIS. So basically what it means is when USCIS has any correspondence about your petition, your receipt notice, if they're requesting more evidence, your approval notice, they're going to send it to your petitioner. They're not going to send it to you directly. They're not going to send it to either of the companies you'll work for, but they're going to go to your petitioner.
Then that brings up a question, like if I'm on an O1 already approved for the agency, and I can't find any work for myself, and neither can my agent, can I continue to look while being on the O1 status? Because on the H1B you can, like you have 60 days, you either find the next employer or get out.
Well,
right.
So, okay, if you have an agency-based O1 and you stop working for one of the employers, it's the 60 days doesn't kick in the same way unless your agent terminates the petition. But as long as your agent keeps the petition going, you do have more flexibility to find work.
Wow.
I mean, generally, look, especially right now, I don't think it's a good idea for anyone to be in the U.S. out without employment for any extended period of time.
How long is extended period of time? We're trying to define.
60 days.
60 days, okay.
But it's not statutory like it is for
H1Bs, yeah.
H's or, yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm not sure if H1B 60-day grace period is statutory. I think it's more of a policy-driven kind of like grace period thing. I have to check, but it's okay. But so that's great for the O1s to be. That has a lot more flexibility because I'm even thinking like like my business mind is thinking like, what if I just create an agency and then I petition a bunch of O1s and then they come in and I go, you find your own job and bring it over, and then I'll just like be the contact person and receive all communications from immigration, which I already do anyway, right? So. That sounds like a great business plan, but I mean, there aren't that many O1s out there. But still, like, I'm thinking, like, well, I could just, like, petition for them, and then we do have an offer to work for the agency, but then once they get in and we don't have a project for them, so we can't pay them, and they go out and find their project and bring it in, and what's wrong with that arrangement? It sounds wrong, but
well, so anyone who's here with the O1 should have a legitimate plan to
already
work.
plan to work.
Well, no, they should have they should be working. So
wait, plan to work and should be working on two different things.
They should have offers of employment. So it would
from the agency or from like an actual client.
Either one.
Okay.
Either one. So the thing is, though, if someone comes in to work for an agent with the expectation the agent will be securing employment, sending them out, and then they find, lo and behold, the agent doesn't have work lined up for them, I think that so statutorily that they might not be violating any specific rules, but in general, you don't want to be here with a work visa and be unemployed for.
Well, I mean, the word unemployed is such, you could be waiting to be employed.
Yeah, you're right.
You're looking for employment. Yeah. And if that's okay, well, then it's much more flexible than the H1B. Because
the way my answer to that would be, if a consular, in the future, if you're applying for some visa and a consular officer says to you, what were you doing during that time? And you say, well, I was looking for work for a year. How comfortable are you saying that? Because I would be concerned that
I think that sounds bad too.
Yeah,
I was looking for work in the U.S. for a whole year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a long time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't prefer any of my clients to be here without employment, especially engineers or people in business and science. Artists are kind of a different story because the nature of the business is very, very different.
Yeah, that's the thing.
People in business and science really should be working.
Right, because they're not like the entertainment people where they have gigs or there could be downtime between the gigs.
Right, and artists a lot of times will also have personal projects that they are developing while between paid jobs and things like that. Whereas I don't think that's as common for people who are on H1B. I don't know that most engineers have personal passion projects, engineering projects that they're working on outside of work.
I'm sure they do, but they don't just bring it up. I mean, it's like a hobby, right? They just kind of like do it on the side, and then but how would that help with the O1? Probably not, because because with the O1, I also understand like a lot of the evidence that you present has to be like if it happened in the U.S., you have to have work authorization for it, or else you can't. Like I had a call from a client. She was on Shark Tank but then she was on Shark Tank as a student. So I mean, when she was a student, so she's
an entrepreneur.
Yes, and then now she's wondering if she should even present the Shark Tank as her O1 evidence because
I would.
But then how are you gonna explain a work authorization issue?
Was she paid?
For Shark Tank?
Maybe you shouldn't tell me about it.
I don't know. I didn't ask, but that's a really good question. I didn't think that being paid or not mattered because it's going to get her a lot of... the way I see it is that she, being on Shark Tank, sort of created this benefit for her company where she had no work authorization to do so. So that was where my analysis leads.
Fair.
And so how would you present that kind of evidence?
So depending on what the exact facts were, if it's something, because you are allowed to compete in a contest, so if you consider it to be a competition where the only compensation could be, I guess it's prize money, which you're right, it is different because you're getting investment funds.
Right,
So I think it's going to be fact specific about whether that's going to be authorized, but in general...
It's fundraising, but do you preempt USCIS from making that an issue by doing like a legal brief in the beginning, or do you wait for them to?
I personally don't present it. If I come to the conclusion that it's unauthorized, I will not present it.
I see. So,
but in general, I love the qualification. Like if
Shark
there's no,
Tank, of course,
an employment authorization issue, I think it's a great piece of evidence. So.
Okay, but so you might be able to present it if you determine that this is prize money, like it's a competition. Or it could go both ways, really.
Or if they're authorized to do it. So F1 students a lot of times will get credit for things they're doing. If they're starting a company, they might get some kind of credit at some point. And I don't know if it's an externship or something like that, but there are these activities that are kind of quasi-professional. If you receive school credit for it, that's also something that I would consider to be authorized.
So like a CPT situation,
yeah,
like,
something like that.
Internship, that's authorized. But then you just have to be authorized by the school.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, so if you're going to get on Shark Tank, then you have to get authorization from the school early on, I suppose. But yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good thing to know. Yeah, so yeah, O1 nowadays, I think it's going to be so popular, much more popular, because I got lots of people asking me about the O1s.
It should be more, it should always be more popular because there's no lottery. So, they have, 750,000 people that enter the lottery sometimes?
Last year,
yeah. So that
will be less next year because of the $100,000 thing.
Do you think the $100,000 will still be in effect by the lottery next year?
It will, yes, and it will be more clear as to who are subject to it. Right now, it's that you win the lottery next year, and then you have to be outside the U.S. coming in. So that rules out, I would say, like 30% of the Indians. So 30% of the 700,000 would be like you get rid of what, like 25,000 like entrants. Yeah, no, you said last year was 750, right? 30% of that.
This is why we're lawyers.
Is like, I'm saying 25,000, like give or take. I'm sort of approximating a number here. So you're gonna get rid of at least like a third of the lottery entrants. You're still gonna be, I think it's still gonna be oversubscribed, where there's still gonna be a lottery.
Absolutely.
Unless we have a huge crash at the end of the year, which we don't know yet. But if like COVID, where there was no lottery for a year or two, I remember. So next year, we're going to see a substantial drop in the registration, I believe, because a lot of the people from outside the U.S. won't be able to come in, so then employers won't have the incentives to file for them. So then they should start working on their O1. And I think what's really great about the O1 is that you could work on it while you're abroad, right? It doesn't really matter where you are. You can enter into journal review agreements with university while you're remotely doing that, like in India. And
absolutely, right. That's a good point. The evidence for the O1, it does not have to come from the United States. If you're peer reviewing journals in your home country or any other country, that absolutely counts for the O1. Especially if you've never had work authorization to work in the U.S., then they wouldn't expect to see evidence from here. So. Absolutely.
Okay, well, one last question about, like, some people call me and they say, oh, I just got laid off on H1B, I want to do O1. How fast can it be done?
I know, that's always so tough.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so my answer to that's a tough situation for someone that's never had an O1 before. The way that our firm typically does O1s, we will allow clients to submit documents to us for the first 60 days. And then once we have everything, it can be, if there's someone available immediately to do the research and drafting, about a solid week to put together a case.
That's fast.
Okay. And then, that's dedicating the full time to it. And then if you're in a profession where you need, union or peer opinions, that can take another couple weeks before it's filed. So it's really hard to get it all done within 60 days. If all the documents are immediately available when you start the process, okay, then it is doable, although it's rushed. If for most people they don't have all the documents together from day one, and the document collection is a process, which is then going to push it outside the 60 days. So anyone who thinks that they might be looking at an O1 as an alternative, get together your documents in advance, have them available, because it'll save time.
So when people first reach out to O1 lawyers, what are the 5 things that they should put in front of you? Like what you wish that they have?
So a resume or a CV that shows their professional experience, what their
education.
Yep. Well, mostly their experience, their education. Actually, for O1, education is generally less important than it is for almost every other kind of visa. But yes, of course, some educational background is very helpful. Anything that shows that, hopefully that resume includes anything you've done that outside your company. So if you've been an expert that has spoken on panels or that has judged, peer reviewed, all these things, I think that's the most important thing. And then also we need to know about your job offers, what companies in the US are looking to hire you, because without that, can apply. I think it's important that we have a rapport. I do talk to people that sometimes I feel like we're not the best fit, and in that case, I'll say, look, I think you're great. I'm sure you'll be qualified, but I'm not sure that I'm the right person to represent you. So, usually at the end of half an hour, we'll have a sense. I'll have a sense of if I'm happy to work for the person or not.
Okay. I mean, what makes you think that you're not the right person to represent someone? That's like saying you, but not they're eligible.
So to me, I already mentioned that I think the mindset of the process is important. And so for me, someone that tells me, okay, let me look into that. I think I can do that. Let me figure out how to do that, as opposed to, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. You figure that out for me.
I see the attitude, right?
Yeah.
The can-do attitude.
How we're going to work together. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, how do we communicate? Like, are we communicating effectively? Things like that.
Okay. Well, is there anything you want to say about O1 in next year? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so I think that I've always thought that it's a good idea to prepare an O1 as a backup to an H1B, but now more than ever. Historically, it's just been because the odds are against you in the lottery, and so it gives you another pathway to be able to stay and work. And even more so next year if they continue to impose these fees on employers. It's really putting a foot on the neck of the employers. They're not going to have any other options. So I think that actually teaching companies about the O1 and convincing them that this is a pathway that they should be exploring after decades of only relying on H1B, and there is there's a phobia of O1s in big companies. Some of the biggest companies have a blanket policy, we don't do O1s. And so
why is that?
I think that historically they, it is a higher standard. It's subjective. So convincing an officer that someone is qualified, if you don't know exactly what they like, how they like it, it can result in a case getting denied. And I think that they probably, had a couple bad experiences and then just
and O1s are more expensive than the H1B in general, a little bit, right?
I mean, it takes a lot more hours of work to put together an O1 properly than it does for H1B.
Yeah, I can get an H1B out in an hour. But,
so 40 solid hours to do an O1.
40 solid hours?
Yeah,
my goodness.
That's what I was telling you. It's a lot of work. That's why.
That's like writing a novel.
So it's a lot of work, but. So I think that that's the main reason that companies have shied away from them in the past. And I think that going forward, these corporate policies are gonna have to be revisited, to make sure that people can stay. And, if you end up premium processing an O1 and it costs, the employer $10,000, that's still gonna be a value compared to an H1B that's gonna be
done in 3 years,
$7,000 or $8,000 for the petition plus $100,000 for the penalty or whatever.
Yeah, and then you have to pay every time you try to change something, amend something.
Yeah.
That is just crazy. Yeah. So, do you think that we're on the right track when it comes to immigration, like the policies and stuff? What do you think?
Oh, well, Jack, that's a big question.
It's a yes or no.
Well, I think I've been so energetically focused on the enforcement and not as much on so I think that the policies surrounding enforcement have been difficult and scary to all levels, like to everyone. So I hope to see a more humane approach to enforcement policy, in terms of visa policy. I find that that the way that things are rolling out is jarring. So, even if there might be some kind of good purpose behind some of the rules, the execution is making it very hard to support. So if the draconian H1B policy, if it really does somehow improve the lot of American tech workers, I'm sure there's something to be said for it, but the way that it's being implemented, I'm sure there's a better way.
Yeah, that's true. Do you see USCIS being faster on your cases in terms of adjudication, No, not really. So you haven't seen that? Yeah.
I'm not seeing them faster. So one thing I'm seeing for O1s, I'm not really seeing any negative impact. Like O1s are still getting approved. I'm not seeing a ton more requests for evidence, but I am not. There's most of my O1s are taking. It's a really wide range, but anywhere from 3 to 4 months on the fast end to 7 or 8 months on the slow end.
That's fast. I was thinking like 10, 12 months to getting a petition approved, like the I-140 and stuff.
Oh, I'm talking about O1s. I'm talking about I-129s.
Yeah.
Oh, for I-140s that are not in premium processing, I'm seeing it most 9 to 15 months.
Yeah. So I just thought that, the petitions are similar to like the immigrant visa petitions, but they're much faster,
they're much
actually.
Faster, yeah.
Well,
they're faster than those.
That's great, yeah, because
but still, so like 6 to 8 months for an O1 petition, to me, historically, that's a rather long time. In years past, usually at most it's 3 or 4, but now 3 or 4 is kind of the faster side of things from what I'm seeing. Which is then prompting a lot of people to have to use premium processing for an additional, essentially, $3,000.
Do you think that people who have O1s are going to have an easier time qualifying for EB-1A?
So, generally, yes. So, it's not a guarantee, because I do talk to a lot of people that say, okay, I have O1 and now I'm ready to file for EB-1. And so I have to really clarify that having the O1 approved, it is definitely a step in the right direction, but it is not a guarantee of EB-1 approval. But yes, you're on the right track, especially for engineers and people in business science.
What would you say that someone who has an O1 to get to EB-1A, what is that one thing that they need to...
More
of the same. More of what they already have.
So I say that the EB-1 is an O1 on steroids. So it's more quantity and better quality.
It's still subjective. So
totally
you just have
subjective.
to present it. Okay. Yeah, because when I hear those, I hear subjective.
Absolutely. And I tell every single person that considers EB-1, it is very subjective, and there is an element of luck. You roll the dice and you see who gets your case, what they like, what they don't like, and you can get a very different result with the same evidence. If you file the exact same case twice, you can get 2 completely different results.
Now, if it's denied and then you refile it again, do you recommend adding a lot more new things, or just a little bit new things? Or, I mean, we're not going to refile with the same thing, right?
So not usually. Almost always we will supplement it. I mean, it depends on the person's situation. If they, a lot of people will want to do it as quickly as possible, in which case there's not a lot to add, but we do add something. Now, if the situation is that they say, you know what, I'm gonna take a break from this for now, and we're gonna try again down the road in a year or 2, and then in that case, we might add a lot. So, but
the point is, you can submit O1 and EB-1A as many times as you want.
Yeah, O1 doesn't max out ever. So you can have O1 and by the way, people that do, so it's very rare someone will get their first O1 and then qualify for, especially if they're right out of school or just finishing OPT, it's rare that you're going to get an O1 for 3 years and then be qualified for the EB-1. EB-1 is really for people that are working at really high levels in the field. Most of my clients have to have EB-1 or have O1 for at least 6 years. Even that is a stretch, so a lot of people have O1 for 10 years or more before they get to that level in their career where they qualify for the EB-1.
Wow.
Yeah, well, the EB-1 is not made for people at the very beginning of their career in general. I mean, if you're in a really cutting edge field, that's to your advantage because you are a pioneer and you're doing something new. But for people that are in more established professions, to get to the top of that profession, it's,
Yeah, but on the USCIS website, it says like they give it to like Nobel Prize winners. You don't have to be like Nobel Prize winners.
No, you don't have to be a Nobel Prize winner. No, certainly not.
Okay, that sounds good. At least there's hope for everyone. So yeah, a lot of Indians are looking at EB-1As, EB-1s because the priority is short. It's quicker, easier to get to than like EB-2 and EB-3. So this is definitely going to be like the next big hot topic. The O1s and EB-2 and IWs. So I'm so glad we had this talk because I'm not an expert in O1 and EB-1A. So I've learned a lot today and. hopefully you did too. This is turning out to be a very long video, but it's good. It's very dense material and lots of work needed to be put into it on both sides, you know, the applicants and the attorneys. So hopefully you got something out of this video. And thank you, Liz, for joining us in the video. Okay. Well, thank you guys for tuning in.